2.5 and still rising quite steeply. So we're due for probably much the same sort of day as yesterday, with it clearing up later on. We hope. It would be nice. I will go and give a bit of a report from the boats shortly, because there's some interesting reports. Is there anything urgent from you guys? No? Alright, well, let me just say that Haven are trotting along towards the west there. Light winds, and they're down at almost 2-4 south and 167 east, and they've been motoring since lunch yesterday. But I'm sure they won't be too upset about that. It's quite pleasant, 1 to 2 metre southeast swell, so all is well with them. Cables length 2 are absolutely ripping along, but mind you, they've got 28 knots of southeast wind, and they're doing 9 knots. But they're a bit late leaving. They were at 1827, this is a short while ago, and 17825, and they hit a bar of 1018. So they're really making some distance there. Swell 2.5 metres, and that's reported by Lebeccio as well. But cables length 2 did 232 miles in 24 hours. Boy, I wish Chameleon would do that sort of speed. Lebeccio, they are another late lever. They are currently at 1947 and 17547, and they've got wind in the 17 to 22 knot bracket, and it's now east-southeast. So they're going to need to put the pedal to the metal as soon as the seas sort themselves out. They've got 2 to 3 metre seas, so they've got a bit of catching up to do. And interesting report from Tregoning. Thank you for that, Alison and Randall. They went up Tanner last night. They were at Tanner and went up the mountain. Oh, I've forgotten the name of it, but anyway, there's only one there, main one, that's spewing stuff. And they report an absolutely fantastic night, very well worth every penny. The rough cost, and you paid for the pickup ride to the entry point, which is 2,500 Vatu, and then the volcano and cultural display, whatever that was, about 9,750 Vatu. So you're looking at about $132 US. And they said last night the cloud cover was about 75%, but no problem, as it was a beautiful sunset, and the breeze kept the ash and the sulfuric acid away from them, and so they had a really, really good time. But if you're going up, they say, bring warm clothes. You are going up, and it does get colder. All right, thank you for that. Really interesting. Looks like there's quite a bit of wind in various places in Fiji, but Whistler report it's pretty decent over at Muscat Cove. There's only about 10 knots there, but there are some stronger winds in various other spots that David will talk about when he gets the microphone. All right. And well done to the Lark. They're about to enter Port Vila. Had a pretty good passage up from New Zealand with those southerly winds, so they'll be enjoying much warmer weather than our 14 degrees at the moment. Okay, looks like we are still streaming, but I haven't seen anything come on. But anyway, hopefully all is going well there. So a bit of news. And I'd have to say there's not a hell of a lot of news around. From our little world here, we have fantastic news. We managed to get into the city yesterday without getting lost, which for us is pretty good. I tell you what, navigating in Auckland is a little bit like, well, it's a test of a relationship. It's a bit like, you know, going to sea with your partner in rough weather. And certainly it's challenging because some of the internet instructions for how to find a place give you totally the opposite directions, which yesterday, because we'd already made a mistake the last time, we ignored and did our own feel to the direction that we went and managed to get out over to the Manukau Harbour without any problem at all. So just be wary of maps in Auckland area. If they're out of date, they will be useless because there are now tunnels where there were no tunnels before. In fact, if you're doing the usual thing, coming to New Zealand, buying a car, and then going walk about down through the islands. The best thing to do with Auckland is to go straight through it to the other side. I can assure you
that's the best part
that's
about
the best
Auckland.
part of Auckland. You either go to the airport and get out of the place quickly, or you go straight through and get to the southern side. All right, with that little bit of advice, let's go on to the news such as it is at the moment in the world. There was a whaling conference in Brazil, or there still is actually, and they discussed establishing a whale sanctuary in the South Atlantic, but that failed to get anybody to support it. Japan, Norway and Russia being the main ones that didn't support it, amongst others. There was no real reason for it because there's no commercial whaling in the South Atlantic anyway, so I'm not quite sure what that was all about. I hope I didn't say Pacific, it's the South Atlantic that they were talking about. Syria, I haven't talked about Syria because they've been at war for 7 years and it sort of gets a bit boring to talk about. But Russia and Syria have been bombing the hell out of Idlib, which is up in the north, and it's the last rebel-held area. And the USA is really against that because they're destroying it, and Turkey has in fact called the UN to try and do something about stopping it. But Syria and Russia want to get rid of the rebels there, and that would sort of be the end of the whole problem in Syria, I would imagine. But anyway, there's a bit of a to-do-ment about the bombing in Idlib. Don't know where that is. Florence, of course, the big hurricane over on the east coast. Boy, it's getting some publicity. I think they're trying to divert news from other scandalous events in Washington. But anyway, it's now predicted to stall over the Carolinas. There's over 1 million people evacuating, and they've turned the roads into an easy way to get out of the area of the Carolinas. But it's still certainly going to be hitting now Friday. So there's a bit more time for people to belt hardwood on their windows and tidy up their sections and so on and so forth. It seems that the latest way of doing anything stupid is to drive into crowds, and even in China, there was a driver in southeast China in a place called Pingyang. This place is about 500 k's north of Guangzhou. Anyway, this fellow who's actually didn't die in the event, he has been arrested. He drove the car into a crowded square, killed 9 people and injured some of them seriously, about 46 others. So I don't imagine he's going to have a very pleasant time in the next few days. Going to the UK now. Poor old Theresa May is in strife. There was a meeting of about 50 Tory MPs opposed to her leadership, and that number is growing. It's all about the Brexit situation. She wants to keep, this is my summary, I don't know how accurate it is, but she wants to keep Britain aligned with the EU as part of the Brexit deal to enable free trade to go on and handle the whole island situation, which is always a problem. The others want an absolute total break with the EU and retain their sovereignty. So there's, in the next few days, just watch the space, there could be a bit of a problem there with the UK. There was a big rally in Barcelona. This is for our Spanish listeners out here. As you know, the Catalonians want to leave Spain, and evidently yesterday was their commemorative day, so they had a very large gathering in Barcelona. Spanish always like to have a day off to do something, but anyway, they still want to become independent of Spain, so they voiced their interest on that yesterday. Oh dear, yes, some of the stuff that just goes round and round. I should keep all these little notes that I make to myself, because probably in a couple of years' time I could just repeat them. New Zealand Stock Exchange, with NZX and NASDAQ have a new relationship. They've actually been working together for some time, since about 2012, because New Zealand has been using their trading and surveillance system, the NASDAQ system. So NASDAQ and New Zealand have across the New Zealand exchange have a pretty good relationship. NASDAQ tend to use us as a beta site for any of their innovative ideas. And so now they're looking at a cross-listing situation so that you can, as a company, cross-list on both the New Zealand Exchange and the NASDAQ. So that will be quite interesting for some companies, particularly the newer ones. All right, that's about it for the news. I'm going to try and find Rapaki, Gulf Harbour. I don't know what's happened to the Rapaki radio. It used to be really, really good. Rapaki, Peter.
Gulf Harbour, this is Rapaki.
Well, there you are, loud and clear. Go ahead, Peter.
Good morning, Patricia. Did a bit of work on my radio ground this morning. Over.
Yes, I can hear you. Perfect conditions, and Shelley might even be able to hear you if she's listening on streaming. I'll turn the volume up. Go ahead.
Yes, I'm hoping to give you on. We're at 2319 South, 17552 east, which was 4 of 185 and a speed of 6 knots. Over.
Yes, all copied. Carry on.
We've got 15 knots of southeast and 20% cloud.
Well, that's nicer than it is here. All right, Rapaki 2319-17552 east, 185 true at 6 knots with a 15 knots from the southeast and 20% cloud cover. Well, sounds good, and yes, the radio is significantly better than it was yesterday, whatever you did, so sounds good, and a good speed and a good position for getting in when you should, Peter. Over.
Roger that. We're lining up on Tuesday arrival.
Okay, a true Tuesday arrival. Well, you might be the first one of the season. I'll have to find out whether that's the case, because there's a few of you on the way there.
Time to try to make Monday.
Oh, David. He's never happy. David said, would you try and make Monday? So you better get the whip out. Over. All right. And we've got a few people are going to have to get the whip out for a Monday arrival. But boy, cable's length 2 at their 9 knots should be able to catch up with you. Okay, is there anybody else? I'll clear with Rapaki. Sounds as if all is good on board there. Anybody else for Gulf Harbour? I don't hear anything, and I think I did give the Levicchio position. I'll just let you know about what they had to say there. Talking about very confused waves where they are, which is a damn nuisance, particularly for a catamaran. So, yeah, just quite choppy and short periods, so that's not very comfortable.
Price you pay for 2 holes.
David just chuckled and said it's the price you pay for 2 holes, you get it twice over. So they've been going a bit conservative to make it a bit more pleasant, but they're going to have to get organised as well to get in a little bit sooner than 6 knots would allow. All right, well, if there's nothing more, I'm going to pass the microphone.
Right, okay, good morning, everybody. And as you know, we start with the upper levels. And our eastern shortwave trough has closed off now. Remember, closing off means the height contours form circles. Now, it's situated pretty much over 170 west, so it has moved east a bit. Directly underneath that is the surface complex low that we've had now for a few days. There's 2 centers at the moment. One is a 974, quite a nasty little bit of work there. But it's out of the picture in the sense that it's quite a bit east. The only thing that would affect the cruising yachts at the moment would be the swells that are being pushed up, and we're starting to get some complaints about those swells, but that's about it. There's not much we can do about that. Now the 500 ridge is nearly over New Zealand. That's to the west of the shortwave trough. So nearly over New Zealand. And the associated surface high is, well, that as well is pretty much over New Zealand, although it's really not doing all that much to speak of. Anyway, the high that is moving on is quite strong. It's going to be, they estimate to be 1030 millibar at 10:30. That's pretty strong. Now, by lunchtime tomorrow, it's nearly in the same location, believe it or not. It's going to increase its strength a little bit. Maybe we're looking at a 1032 millibar. And by lunch Saturday, the center starts to broaden out a little bit. In the process of broadening, it gets a little bit weaker. So we're looking at 1028 millibar. So anybody that's south of 30 south should have lighter air at that point. Not so though if you are at 25 south and northward, and I hope you're not. I hope you're past that by then. The isobars are quite compressed up in that area, and so the winds are going to be quite fresh. We'll be looking at east-southeast to east, 20 to 25 knots, and gusts to 30. So that is from 25 south north. So, yep, you boats that are underway, you're going to have right through the weekend some very, very good direction winds and fairly strong winds to get a move on. Now, those of you that are still going on Sunday, and a bunch of you are, you could expect east, northeast to northeast winds now as the high starts to slowly move to the east. Still pretty strong though. It's going to remain about a 1032. So we're looking at wind speed around 20 knots from 25 south to 30 again. So still pretty strong air north of 25, but again, hopefully you're far to the south of that. Now, the weak trough that I mentioned yesterday for Sunday is fizzling. It looked like we were going to have some effect of that, but looking at the various models, it appears that the high pressure, the remains of the high pressure anyhow, are going to just chew it up, and there's not really going to be anything of it, which is good. But the main event is going to arrive after that. That particular trough was always a prefrontal, if you will, but the main one's going to arrive, it looks like, midnight on Monday, with possibly a depression just to the north of the North Island. And that's why I'm encouraging everybody to get in Monday. By Wednesday, after this whole thing goes through, this whole mess cleans out, the new ridge takes over. And therefore, we're going to have southerly winds from New Zealand all the way up to Fiji. So that's a bit of a bummer for the late arrivals. You're going to be faced with headwinds. Certainly, it isn't the beginning of a new window for those of you that are up in the islands. But those of you that haven't quite gotten to New Zealand by then, we're going to have to work around that. So now is your chance to get moving, because the wind directions are going to be excellent between now and Sunday, now and Monday, really. So please take advantage of that while you can. All right, looking at Tonga now, where since yesterday our trough has been affecting the country. So expect trough conditions today, the cloudy, scattered showers, that sort of thing. Tonga Tapu report southeast 10 this morning, early this morning, scattered to broken cloud, and the barometer 1018. The Hapais, the airport there, southeast 10 to 12 knots, and also scattered to broken, and the barometer 1016, a little bit of a differential. Vavau, light and variable, not too much air at all this morning in Vavau. Scattered to broken, and the barometer also 1016. So my projection for winds by lunch, I think I see southeast about 15 to 20, and they will probably increase by dinner time, maybe southeast getting up to about 20 knots. And tomorrow, even more wind, southeast 20 to 25, and that is because the isobars are going to compress a bit, and again, that's thanks to the high that's to the south. Now over to Fiji, the trough conditions continue, so expect cloudy periods with showers. There's breaks in this, so you've got areas that will have some sunshine and that sort of thing, but overall you do have the trough that does sit there. But due to the strong high, again, that's near New Zealand, Fiji Met has issued a strong wind warning for all waters, and you could expect southeast 20 to 25 knots and poor visibility in areas of heavy showers. So it's going to be a double whammy, quite a bit of wind and a little bit of rain because of the trough. And part of that trough is caused by what we call a trade wind surge. And this is where, as a high develops, a very strong high builds and starts sending up quite fresh air up to the islands. As the isobars take their turn, in other words, they can start to go anticyclonic up around the islands, the winds slow down just a little bit from being very, very fresh or strong to a little bit less fresh and strong, and they pile up. And when they do that, obviously the air goes up and we get our precipitation and cloud. And that's what's known as a trade wind surge, a result of a trade wind surge. Now for tomorrow, expect pretty much the same conditions, I think. In fact, it looks like troughing conditions through the weekend. Doesn't look very nice for the Fiji area. Saturday, the wind should back to the northeast, so be ready for that shift. And again, that's part of that trade wind surge where we're seeing those strong anticyclonic winds. They make that bend to head from the northeast to the southwest, and thereby creating a cloud. Vanuatu, well, they continue with scattered cloud. Our trough was quite evident early this morning. When I took an early loop, I could see it over the northern part of Vanuatu, but along about 6 o'clock, 6:30 this morning, it started to move away from the group, according to the loop. So that's good news. However, it's still partly cloudy throughout Vanuatu, Luganville, Port Vila, Tanna, partly cloudy in those areas. Strong winds, I think, are going to prevail again because of the high, southeast 20 to 25, and of course rough seas with that, probably getting 2.5 meters. And most of the strong winds are in the north at the moment, and further south we're looking at 15 to 20, with the seas a little bit less, probably about 2 meters. But tomorrow it's a switch. We should get some lighter air in the north, but a little bit stronger in the south, maybe 20 to 25 from Port Vila down to Inishewen. So a flip-flop of the winds in terms of strength. Over to Newcastle, it looks quite nice on imagery. Just a few scattered clouds from what I can see. Plenty of sunshine. So expect easterlies today around 15 knots, and about the same thing on Friday. But the clouds look like they're going to start to increase. So we may see showers developing on Friday. Saturday, easterlies about 15 to 20, and it looks like there could be some rain Saturday as another little system starts to approach or starts to affect New Caledonia. So that's about it. Those of you that have any questions can come now. Again, those of you on passage that are up around 20, 22 south, time to really move. But if all fails, the low that's going to develop, looks like it's going to develop north of New Zealand by late Monday into Tuesday, is not very strong and not very long lasting. So if worse comes to worse, you just slow the boat down and let it pass. You can even heave to if you have to, much like beating into headwinds. But those southerlies don't look very strong in the beginning, so it'll be just a matter of tacking into the Bay of Islands then, but hopefully you could make it. Any questions or comments, come now. Here's the boss.
It's interesting having people on passage. It makes us realise that summer is coming. Thanks for looking out the door. All right. Anybody else for Gulf Harbour Radio? Got a few reports in from people there. Looks actually quite pleasant in Vianney Bay. I wonder if Diego and Andrew have met up yet. Okay. Margaret says the Becchio should head to Newcastle and waste out there. Well, we'll have to have a look at that one. I wonder if they've been to Newcastle. I think they're in a bit of a rush to get here, though, to get away again, I think. Anyway, we'll have to see what they come up with there. Shake out a few sails, and it sounds like the conditions are going to improve to really put the pedal to the metal, so that will be something to look at as well. Last call. Victoria, we haven't heard you this season. Go ahead. Okay, so you'll be in the major migration period. All right, in about a month's time. So yes, it will get pretty busy then, won't it? And nice to say hello. Boy, you'll have a few tales to tell after 7 years. And thank you for coming on to say hello. We often wonder if we're talking to ourselves here, so it's always good to know that there are a few people out there listening. So I missed where you are at the moment. Over. Well, thank you for that. Yes, sometimes Suva Harbour's a real problem in both directions for the radio, so managed to work that one out, no problem. So that's good. All right, folks, I will leave you with the frequency. It's all yours, and we will be back again tomorrow morning. Actually, just talking about the major migration, we probably start earlier to cope with probably more boats calling in. So when the major migration starts, we will be starting the net earlier. The weather will still continue at this time unless propagation changes significantly, just so that people who only tune in for the weather know what time it is. But unless things change propagation-wise, we'll keep the weather at this time, but start to talk to boats somewhat earlier. We do, of course, go on to daylight saving, but we stick with the UTC time. So unless you change your clocks, you will get us at the same time. Anyway, that's all for the future. Cheers, everybody. Have a good day. We'll be back again tomorrow.